feel?
No, I want to be liked.
I want it to flow. I want to just go, just chatting. And but that's not about Les, that's about me. I want me to get to a point where I'm not just going.
Well, it's a mix of what we both said. Les likes us and wants to chat.
Do you know what I suddenly thought then? As like, and I hate myself for saying this, but you know when you say something a bit pratty and it gets and there's a little laugh and you're like, ooh, I think I'm in here. Wanker.
Thing is, I know you're thinking that, so I just know. So, we were just talking, and Les Dennis has been in our lives since forever.
I can't remember a time where I didn't know who Les Dennis was. He was on telly as we were getting conscious.
Didn't you come out your mother's and go, Les Dennis?
No, I came out to the theme tune of Family Fortune.
Did you? Which is what again?
I don't know.
No,
That's not it.
No, I know.
Oh right, I don't know why I said that.
That's striking.
That's
No, that's not it.
No. What's wrong with me? Let it go. He's got it wrong.
No.
No.
Yeah, but he's always been in the corner of the room since I've been.
Yeah.
I'm nervous.
Yeah, I'm really nervous. I said to Petra, we're about to do it. And she was like, what? We're about to do it. We're about to talk to Les Dennis. And she went, oh, have fun.
Yeah.
Like, no.
I said to Naomi last night, this is my job. I'm talking to Les Dennis in the morning. This is my job.
It's my job. It comes with anxiety when
it does come with anxiety.
With a massive deal to you. I was lucky because I sort of forgot it was today. I thought it was next week, so I hadn't got any build-up in my head. I hadn't been overthinking it because I can block things off when they're a week away, like this is not happening.
Yeah, but I felt that with you when I mentioned Les Dennis the other day. You were like, oh, yeah. I was like, no.
No, but it was far enough away that
I
didn't need to panic. And then you went last night. Tomorrow, and I was like, oh, God, and it engulfed me.
I just don't want to miss this opportunity of being able to ask.
What's more important is he likes us.
The thing is, I want to go into how big was the Family Fortune studio and... there's all that stuff.
Okay,
there's so much stuff that needs asking.
I can't think of, because I'm panicking, I can't think of anything. Even though there's loads. Fuck, I am really nervous. This really is, it's stifling nerves though. Shit, I can't think of a fucking thing, even though we've
I don't know either.
I don't
know either.
Oh, God. Oh, shit. Okay. I'm hot and cold. Okay, it's fine.
This is just that little connection between just a different generation. He worked with the greats, and I'm like, fuck.
I know. I also want to minimise my gushing.
Yeah, well, I can't help it. I've got to be real. Can't help it.
I know, but I have to have because there's my genuine gushing, but then I'll have my level of gushing, so he knows I'm gushing. You know, like I'll have a.
Yeah, maybe I'm just going to stare at Les. I hope he doesn't mind that. Just touch the screen. What's wrong with me?
I reckon I'm going to take a screen grab without asking.
How are we going to start this conversation?
Don't rely on me, please, because I can't.
I don't have to, because immediately as soon as I appear, you're...
Lean in. Don't lean in. Totally. Fuck.
Ooh, got nervous chills. Fuck.
I want it over.
Oh, here we go.
Oh no! Ooh. Oh my God! Oh no! I don't do what I normally do. Oh my God! Oh my word!
Oh,
hello.
Hello, Les.
Hello, Les.
How are you doing?
Great! It's really lovely to meet you guys.
Oh, really?
We're really nervous, Les.
We're really nervous.
So am I. So am I.
No,
I'm
we
a big
are.
fan of you guys. Honestly, I think you are brilliant, both of you.
Oh,
We've just had a meeting for 20 minutes, just working out how to talk to you.
yeah, because we are. I'm still tense because I want you to like us.
I already do. Like me.
Right, that's it then. Cheers, Les.
Yeah, tick, done, met Les Dennis. Yes!
Oh, thanks so much for coming on.
Pleasure, absolute pleasure. And Tom Bennett sends his love.
Oh, does he?
Oh, are
Yeah.
you working with Tom at the moment?
Yeah, I'm doing Only Fools and Horses, the musical. I'm doing Grandad, so that's what.
What?
Yeah, I'm Grandad, filling in for Paul while he's off fishing and doing other things, and doing a little job show with Paul Whitehouse.
Wow, how long are you doing that for?
I'm in it until the 7th of January. I've been there since 3rd of October. We're having such a lovely time.
I've spoken to Tom about that. He loves it. He says
He lives in your road, doesn't he, Joe? Tom?
no, he's moved.
Oh.
He said that last night, a warm-up. He said that he used to live in the next road to you.
Yeah, literally 50 yards away, and
Right.
then he moved to the sticks. But he told me a really interesting thing about doing that show, and I don't know if you've noticed it. He said when he first comes out,
Yeah.
it's a kind of like, oh, it's not David Jason, so and he knows it's coming,
Yeah.
and then there's a gag or something, and you just feel the audience sort of
Yeah.
click into they are the characters.
Yeah, he says to me that it kind of the first scene is in the marketplace, and he's there with all the other characters, and they sing the Fools and Horses song, and he says it's them because it's on revolves, the sets all revolve around on 2 different revolves, and he says that when it gets into the Trotter flat with Grandad and Rodney and Del, the audience just kind of breathe.
Oh.
It's also kind of like people that come are like, all the purists are like, hang on a minute, Only Fools and Horses, a musical that, John Sullivan would be spinning in his grave. John Sullivan came up with the idea for the musical and wrote one of the songs in 25 years we'll be all millionaires. He wrote that with Chaz Hodges before they both sadly died, and it's people come along, and Michael Ball, who is a purist about musicals, came along and said it's wonderful, it does exactly what it says on the tin. It's
Amazing.
got all the elements of the great telly show, and the pathos, and it's a lovely play. It's kind of more of a play with songs than a West End musical as such, but it's great to do.
I mean, I've always wondered how Tom had the guts to take the role on in the first place, playing
Big,
Del Boy.
and playing Grandad's big old boots.
Les, I can't believe. I hope you don't take this the wrong way. You're now at the age where you're playing Grandad.
Well,
Yeah,
will be.
nuts.
I'm the age that Leonard Pierce was when he died. He was 69, and I'm 69. Well, Paul's younger than me, so he's playing it as well.
Yeah.
Was that like a really easy decision to make to do that, or because
It was for me. Because I loved the show so much. And people say, "Oh, did you watch it growing up?" I was like, "Hang on a minute, I was growing up. I was at the BBC doing Les and Dustin's Laughter Show, and studio to us. So they were doing
they're in
Fools
the
and
next studio?
Oh my God.
Right, okay, that's done. Maybe.
In fact, Leonard Pierce and Nick Lyndhurst came and did a sketch with us on the Laughter Show in those days, and so and one day Buster Merrifield was in the canteen, and he was in his costume, and he said, "Young man, can I borrow £1 to get a cup of tea?" And I went, "Yeah." Every time he tried to give me that £1 back, I wouldn't have it, so because I wanted to always have Buster Merrifield owing me £1.
Les, did you ever see the sets in the flesh? Did you ever actually go in there and have a look at it?
Yeah, went in and had kind of, but kind of timidly, we kind of stood at the back, while it was.
Oh my God!
I think
And
that's what.
Sorry.
Sorry, no, I was just going to say, I mean, that's what I think me and Dave, because obviously we've opened up that we've sort of chatted for, going, we're about to meet Lesden. But I feel like we've got all these things we want to ask about who, the people you'd met and worked with, and that, like the list was sort of like mind-blowing who you've worked with and stuff. And yeah, I like you. Kind of you have you like just the fact you were next door to Only Fools and Horses. So you
Yeah, absolutely. It was great. I mean, and we would the rehearsal rooms were in Acton, and people used to call it the Acton Hilton because the canteen was at the top on the top floor, and you could be. I mean, I remember once standing in a queue to get me egg and chips, and John Gielgud was in the queue, and I remember seeing kind of sat on the next table Dirk Bogarde and Lee Remick who were doing
what?
it. So it was like you just didn't know who you might bump into, and feel that kind of real. Oh my God. Dirk Bogarde just kind of waved at me. He knows who I am. Incredible, yeah.
So how long have you been? So I was saying to Joe, I don't know how long you've been in the industry, say 40 years.
50.
I worry about what? How 50?
50.
Yeah. I started when I counted back to my first telly was Opportunity Knocks in 1971 with the show when Huey Green was the host of Opportunity. So it's 50. It's now 53 years because I'm.
What did you do on that show? What was your?
I did impressions. I did Freddie Starr's act. When you first start out, you're doing all. I did Mick Jagger and Norman Wisdom and Jimmy Stewart. Lots of impressions. I kind of had also listened to. My mum and dad had been to see Sammy Davis Jr. At the Empire in Liverpool, and they brought me back an EP which was Sammy Davis Jr. impersonates. So I did all of that stuff on there.
Yeah. See, I was saying to Joe, I worry about what am I going to be doing in 3 years? How do I navigate myself through this industry? How have you done it? How have you done it, Les?
Yeah, it's not
easy.
I
don't know. I suppose I just keep changing. Doing something different. I mean, last year I did my first opera, or it's Gilbert and Sullivan, so it's not full opera, operetta they call it. And I look back at my CV and think, I don't know how I've done it. I just kept, I knew that when I was doing the variety days, doing summer seasons with Jimmy Tarbuck and Russ Abbott and working with Tommy Cooper and all those guys, I knew that kind of those days were coming to an end.
How did you know that? How did you because some comedians didn't feel it, did they? They kind of clung on.
Yeah, I suppose so. I used to get the stage, and you'd see on the back page there would be weeks and weeks and weeks of work. You'd see all the clubs, the cabaret clubs and the theatre, and how many people were working 52 weeks a year, and then. I started to notice that it went down to half a page, and then it was a quarter of a page. You could see that the venues were disappearing, and the working men's clubs weren't thriving the way they used to. Yeah. So I just thought, well, when I was at school, I'd been at school with Clive Barker, the horror writer, who wrote Hellraiser, the movie, and Doug Bradley, who played Pinhead in those. I was at school with him. So I'd done all the school plays with Clive, and then done some of his plays after I'd left school, and thought, shall I be an actor? I'd already started doing the clubs, and I thought, shall I go to drama school? And I didn't. But I always intended to go back and, learn the craft as an actor. And when Family Fortunes came along, I was able to, because it only took 3 weeks of the year, I was able to go off and do a rep play for 250 quid a week,
Really?
Yeah, I'd go to the Newbury, the Watermill, or I'd go to Oldham Coliseum and do a play. I did Skylight. My first play was David Hare's Skylight. And the director, Ewan Smith, had the faith in me to do it. And so I loved that. It was something that I always wanted to get back to.
Well, there's the answer there, because it would have been really easy, because Family Fortunes being the beast it was, you could have just done that. Yeah, you know what I mean. And some people would have done. Yeah, and then that would have been I would have done. Yeah, and I would have been swanning off.
You do, but you're always doing different things, aren't you? So I people say, "Are you a workaholic?" And I must be, because when I finish Fools and Horses in January, I'm going straight to Bolton Octagon Theatre to do a classic play for 4.5 weeks. Wow. Because when I got offered it, I thought, oh, I really want to do that. That's a great role, and I want to do it. So I just keep going.
Yeah.
I love. I still love a challenge and something different.
Can I ask just a stupid question? Go back. You said summer season.
Yeah.
Is that where basically in those days you do the telly stuff, but essentially your living was still live?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You sounded like a nut sort of say you're doing the telly gets you your profile, but you feel like is it sort of, you sort of still think of your job as the clubs and the theatres and stuff?
Good question. I mean, literally, variety acts in those days they'd do panto for. I mean, pantomime in the early days used to start on Boxing Day. They start earlier now and they finish the beginning of January, but they used to open on Boxing Day and then they could run through to nearly Easter, and then you'd do a summer season. I never did one as long as that. 12 weeks was the longest panto I did, but summer season, 20 weeks at the North Pier in Blackpool, and it was 6 nights a week and it was twice nightly. You did it 6:10 and 8:40, 6:10 and 8:40. You'd do 2 shows back to back, and you'd have 2 houses of audiences traipsing up the pier to watch the variety show. And they were great days. And I did my first summer season with Jimmy Tarbuck in Scarborough. He taught me such a lot. He saw another young Liverpool lad. My dad had worked for a bookie, and his dad was a bookmaker. And he went, "Come here, son. I'll show you how to walk on stage. I'll show you how to hold a microphone." He was fantastic. He just looked after me. Then I did a summer season with the Black Abbots, and then with Russ, I did lots of summers with Russ, and then Dustin and I, when we hit very quickly, we hit television.
How old were you when that happened?
God, I would be. Let me see. 84, I'd be 31. 31. And
that was a huge show, wasn't it, at the time?
Massive, yeah.
Yeah.
I met Dustin on the Russ Abbott show. I'd met him very briefly before on Freddie Starr's show, the Who Do You Do, the Impressionist show. And then on the Russ Abbott show, he and I shared a flat, a service flat in London, because we didn't have any digs, and I stayed with him, and we just became mates, and we started doing stuff together, and then we had this massive success for 2 years before he sadly died in 1986.
What was that like, Les, for you? Because you were just, like you said, you had a huge hit, and then suddenly your partner would...
Yeah, I mean, it was like the rug being swept from under me. Dustin, and I were being tipped as the new Morecambe and Wise. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
We had a big Saturday night show, and it was a whirlwind. And then suddenly he'd gone. We knew he had a condition. He had cardiomyopathy, which was an of the heart muscle, and he knew he was on borrowed time. We were there. Really? We worked with Tommy Cooper on the.
Yeah, I was saying to Joe, you were there on the night, weren't you?
Yeah, we were the next act on.
Oh my God!
So what did you know was happening?
It was strange because I had worked with Tommy 20 years before that on my wedding night. I worked with Tommy when I was 20 years old. No, hang on, it wasn't 20 years, it was 10 years before. In 1974, when I got married to my first wife, Lynn, I'd worked with him that night because my agent wouldn't give me a night off. So all my wedding guests came to watch me work with Tommy Cooper. And then 10 years later, working with him again, and he said, "I told you were funny." I said, "Don't get too funny." and that day he had made everybody laugh. He didn't do the same thing twice. And then on the night when he collapsed, he was doing this sketch where
did he seem ill at all that night, Les? Was there anything?
Tommy, I mean, it's no secret. Tommy liked to drink. I mean, he when that first time I worked with him in when I was 20, he said on the Saturday night, he said, "You stay for a drink?" And I went, "Okay." So me and Lynn stayed for a drink, and I think we left at 3 a.m. And I know Tommy would go on till 6 a.m. regularly. Had this amazing constitution. He could cope with that. And on the night, he was doing this sketch with where he wore a massive big cloak. And it was clear he was pulling things out of the cloak. First of all, it would be a standard lamp, and things were getting bigger and bigger until step ladders and everything. And they were clearly being pushed through the curtains by the prop guy. But it was hilarious. And then when he collapsed, I was in the wings with Dustin, David Bell, the producer, genius producer, who did all Stanley Baxter's work, and Tommy Cooper Jr., his son. And Tommy's PA and David, when it happened and the audience laughed uncomfortably, David Bell said, "Is that a joke?" And Tommy Jr. said, "My dad has a bad back. He couldn't get up from that." So
this was live on TV, wasn't it?
Yeah. I remember watching it. I remember sat there watching it.
And it was like cue music, cue commercial break. And then they wouldn't move him. The paramedics came on and kind of just moved him behind the curtain. And then Jimmy Tarbuck and David had a chat on stage and then said, "Are you guys ready to go on?" And we thought, really? After the commercial break, we went on and did it. But that night, Dustin said, "That's the way I'd like to go." And then 2 years later, never work with me, guys.
I think it's worth the risk.
He collapsed as we went back to the dressing room.
No, were you with him, Les?
Yeah, we were playing Ugly Sisters in Southport, and he came into the dressing room and he kind of clutched his left arm and went. He actually said, "I think I'm dying," and he collapsed and was in a coma for 2 days. And the loss, it wasn't just. The fact that I had this career with him. He was my best friend. He was such a lovely, you'd have loved him. He was a funny, very inventive comedian.
God, that must have been such a shock for you to be. Oh.
It was a massive shock. And then I kind of proved to people that I was okay on my own, because Morecambe died just around about the same time. And Ernie, because he'd been entrenched in that double act for so many years, he didn't know what to do. Because I'd done what I'd done before. Before I knew I could do it, but I had to prove it to other people that I could do it. Yeah.
And how long did it take you to kind of get the strength to go out and do it on your own?
I remember going and doing a week at the Alex Theatre in Birmingham, and I was on with the Crankies, and I was on my own. And the press came, thinking, "Will Les Dennis be able to do this on his own?" And I remember I opened with "I'm Still Standing."
We've all done it.
Okay, I'm all right, and it was fine. And then Family Fortunes magically came along, so I was very lucky.
Oh, so that came along at that point.
Who did you take over from?
Well, Bob had done it originally. Bob Monkhouse had done about 3 years in the
Did he do it 3 years?
70s, 3 or 4 years. I think he only did it. And then Max Bygraves did a couple of.
Oh, yes.
And then it had been rested, and then I took over in 1987. And apparently, on Twitter last night, somebody said, today marks the 20 years since your last Family Fortunes was on telly. So yesterday, 20 years ago, it finished. Yeah.
Thing is, Les, you say, "Oh, I just took over Family Fortunes." Those are big shoes to fill.
Yeah. Massive. And, if I look back now, I think people would have said after the first series, "Now let's get another host," because my early shows, I made massive mistakes in the sense that we did 26 shows in 3 weeks. So, and we didn't have time to look back and go, "Oh, right, well, we could change that, we could change that." I took Bob as a blueprint and thought, what I've got to do is I've got to go down and talk to every contestant and have a joke for every contestant, because that's how Bob worked.
Yeah.
And it's not how I work. And it took me that first series to realize, hang on a minute, the answers are funny. If they come up with silly answers, that's funny. And just to look down the camera is enough. And a chat about the answers. I didn't have to do what Bob had done, but so I learned on the job, really, and luckily they kept me on for 16 years. I think I did it. Yeah.
Did they have an actual booth Did they sit in a booth?
Yeah,
Or,
yeah,
did they?
have a little booth? Yeah.
Did they?
Okay, there's a danger David may get down to the
I
actual...
can get quite nerdy about this.
Yeah, studio sizes and things. And you may zone out.
How many in the audience, Les, when you were recording those?
How many in the audience?
Yeah, in the Family Fortunes.
Oh gosh, well, it was a normal studio audience, so I should think it was about 200.
Right.
You know, and
Right.
when I did it, we started off doing 2 shows a night, and we do 2 with the same audience, so they had to watch the 2 shows and all that. That's why Bruce always said, "You're so much better than the audience we had last week."
Oh, right.
It was the audience we had last week. So I did 2. Then we moved on to 3. But I also, because a lot of game show hosts kind of like work on the edge and like meet the contestants literally in the game, I felt that I had to be, and Bob had always said to me, but Bob Monkhouse was lovely and so kind of supportive and gave me some great tips. And he said, when you're a host of a show, it's like being the host at a dinner party. You've got to go round and fill everybody's glass and see they're having a good time. And so I took that as my way of working, the way that Bob had done it. But I also I used to do the rehearsals with them in the day. So basically I was doing 4 shows and I got to know them in the day. And when I say rehearsal,
nice.
Not the same questions, but
yeah.
I'd put them at ease in the day, and then by the night time, they'd kind of know me,
Did you get to the point where you could go, right, this family are going to be great fun, these ones are going to be a little bit tricky, like you'd kind of go, oh God, right, I've got to...
Yeah.
Well, very often you'd get someone who was like nervous and would be, blurting out, trying to be funny, and
like us right now.
the uncle on the end, Yeah. But they settled down and had fun, and the answers that we got were just, it was, I mean, you couldn't write.
Because obviously the thing about the Family Fortune cock-ups, they're like still viral now, some of them, aren't they?
Yeah, well, I wrote down some, because I thought you might ask me about.
Oh, yes, this is exactly what I want to know.
Things like name someone you wouldn't see name somewhere you wouldn't see a nun in a brothel. These are all ones that I got. I've looked through those, and some of them are from Bob. And
was this person trying to be funny, or are they mad?
It was a woman. I remember going, bang, a brothel.
It's amazing what you do under tension, though.
The same family. It was name something other than doors you open. Your bowels, Les.
I think this is why I never wanted to go on, because I was like, I would be one of the people that said.
Yeah, because then you suddenly go, what? No,
no, I'm not an idiot.
But what we used to say to them, again, we'd say, look, don't just say I haven't got an answer and wait for the just say the first thing that comes into your head.
So it's your fault, basically.
My fault for it. Yeah. Something you wouldn't try even once. Sex on a train. Just kind of crazy random answers. One of my favourites. It was from Max Bygrave's year. And I remember watching, because when I was they sent me loads of tapes to look at, Max having done it. And I remember this sweet little old lady, a bit like the lady in the Lady Killers, kind of, she was there, and he said, name a slang word for money. And she went, bitch. He went, slang word bitch for money. And she said, I'm awfully sorry, I thought you said mummy. Poor woman's childhood. It was a great show to do. I had a great time.
Am I remember it? We spoke to Richard Osman. Didn't he say Family Fortunes is the perfect?
Yeah, he said it's the perfect game show. Like,
that's
what they aspire to.
Well, Pointless is backward. Is Family Fortunes backwards, really?
Yeah, he said that. He said
100 people, and you're looking for the least popular answer rather than the most.
I think he said They did that basically. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's quite open about. Which presenter did that? Because I'm pretty sure. You know, when you go, I think I watched it, or I might have watched it. No, but when in the final round where the guy just kept saying Turkey.
Turkey. That was Max Bygraves.
That was Max.
That was Max. And literally, the guy had gone into the booth, and I think he put his headphones on, and then they'd come to him, and maybe he heard the answer. He heard somebody say to discuss Turkey, and so he came out and just said Turkey to everybody. The first one was name something you take to the beach. Turkey. Name something you see in the park. Turkey. The third one was name a bird you cook at Christmas. And he said turkey. And the audience.
Blimey.
I think it said in the papers, and I'm sure it's nonsense, but the family offered like 500 quid if they didn't put the episode out.
Really? Well, I have to say, if you look at the footage, the family are glaring at him. It cuts back to the family, and I think Max says, "You've won a 2 weeks holiday in Turkey." But on the same show, that family had a question: name a famous Irishman, and honestly, they said Trevor McDonald, Des O'Connor, Tom O'Connor. These are honestly, and Shuey McPhee. Do you remember that? Crossroads, little Scottish chef.
But when you went down the line, these are the
Shuey McPhee, and then somebody went Terry Wogan, ding top. Terry Wogan was when they went to the other team because they'd gone and they had to go over, and it took no money. They offered the money to not put it out.
How often do you reckon you said, if it's up there, I'll give you the money myself? Over those.
It's funny when I first used it, and Dennis
Still made me laugh.
Producer said, "Well, that's your catchphrase," and I went, "No, I've just done it. I can't do it again." That's what a catchphrase is. So I went.
Oh, I loved it.
Started using it, and I did it a lot. And one time, I did have to pay the money.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
really?
Yeah, absolutely. Because the question was, name a way. Let me say, name a way of toasting somebody. What would you say?
Cheers.
Raise a glass.
Raise a glass. Cheers. Yeah. All good. You can. I'll get you an
I
application.
literally panicked there.
Yeah, I did as well. Turkey.
Yeah. And the woman said, "Over an open fire." And if it's up there, I'll give you the money myself. And when we went down the list, it was there. Somebody said over an open fire. So, but luckily, it was only worth 12 quid, and I gave her the 12 quid.
Right.
And did they right? Sorry, I'm getting so into this now. So I'm getting carried away. But did they really do it? Because we never believed that you actually asked 100 people.
Well, yes, we did ask 100 people, but the way we did it was the contestants that were coming in for, the 26 weeks, we would have the next year's questions. And during the day, we would give them those questions. Also, because if you went round London and said, name a famous river, they would say the Thames.
Yeah.
So we had to get a cross-section across the British Isles so all the contestants that came in from all over the UK, we would get them to do that survey for the next year. Yeah.
Les, what was your life like as a presenter of a huge game show when there were only 3 or 4 channels? You must have been. Yeah. I mean, fame must.
It was
level of fame that doesn't exist.
It was massive. Like you say, there were only 4 channels, and at the height of its popularity, we were getting 16 million.
Jesus, that just doesn't happen now.
It
World Cup games don't get that.
Yeah,
now.
No.
So we were getting 16 million, and we were on. It was Family Fortunes on a Saturday night, and then Blind Date was after. And I get so many people saying, we would get ready to go out watching you. Our Saturday night began watching you. Women kind of getting ready, putting their makeup on and stuff, watching the telly and getting ready to go out on a Saturday night. And guys, and so I love that. I love that. It was part of their Saturday night culture. And people, I'm very lucky. I on the whole get good reaction for things. Unless I mention Matt Hancock in a tweet.
Yeah.
The abuse I got, but just incredible. But because I keep thinking, well, I don't have a lot of trolls, and then I thought, oh, I see where they come from.
Yeah, they pop their heads up.
Yeah. Here's a question out of the blue. In your opinion, who's the greatest comedian you've worked with?
Oh gosh, I think working with Ricky was fantastic. I loved it. And I did the Extras episode, and then did Life's Too Short with Warwick and with Keith Chegwin and Sean Williams. And that was, I think he's brilliant. But Tommy Cooper and Ken Dodd. When it comes to the kind of the live guys, Doddy was a joy to watch. He could go on for 5 hours.
I didn't know if that was a myth. He really would go on.
He would start at 7 and it wouldn't finish till midnight.
Well, he'd have enough material to just keep throwing out.
He would, but he'd have the Diddy men on. He'd have the in between. He'd stop, and then his wife Anne would play piano, and he'd have a variety show.
Wow.
And I remember doing a summer season in Great Yarmouth, and he was doing a show at the ABC, and at midnight there was a hypnotist who started his show, but Doddy would overrun, and this hypnotist, his audience were waiting outside to go in. And Doddy, I remember one time saying, he said, I've had everything. He said, I've had the hook, I've had the curtains closed. He said, I've never had somebody in the wings going, come off. He was great.
Did you ever see Tommy Cooper sort of got to pick it, like, go down badly in a theatre? I can't imagine him ever doing badly. No.
I did, and that first week I did with him in Liverpool when I was 20, the week I got married. I watched him every night, and he used to start his act with the compere would come on. Pete Price it was, I remember it. Ladies and gentlemen, Tommy Cooper, and the audience would go mad, and you just hear, I can't get out.
Yeah.
I'm stuck in my dressing room. I can't get out. Let me out. And they're just the anticipation. Because he had funny bones and looked funny, they could imagine him before he walked on stage. He had a gate on stage. Between the microphone and
so good.
The gate.
Oh, so good.
How long would he do the thing off stage for? How long could he do it for?
It could be 3-4 minutes. Yeah. It could. I think Rick Mail, as a tribute, used to do it. Yeah. He attributed it to Tommy. And Rick Mail used to do it in his act.
And how much of his act was kind of he knew exactly what to do next? How much of it was improvised? Was it all to the?
He was a clever magician, so all that stuff of making it look like it had gone wrong, like Les Dawson had to be a pianist to do that. Tommy was good, and it was orchestrated, but he would change the routine every night. He'd do different things. One of my favourite stories about him was he'd been in the Guards. And you imagine Tommy with a massive big busby, standing on sentry duty, having to keep reading. I started going. He fell asleep, and he opened his eyes, and in front of him was his commanding officer, looking furious. And Tommy went, "Amen." This is just. He was just a funny man. Yeah.
I had trouble with my Wi-Fi, baby girl.
We're called chatterbox. Just a couple of guys. I had trouble with my Wi-Fi, baby girl. Chatting to each other. We're called chatterbox. Just a couple of guys. Baby girl. Baby girl. We're called chatterbox. Baby girl. Baby girl. I had trouble with my Wi-Fi, baby girl.
So how did the extras thing happen, Les? Does Ricky just ring you up out of the blue?
Yeah. I got a call from my agent. I mean, it was not long after I'd come out of the Big Brother house, and the phone wasn't ringing.
Was it really? Was it really that quiet?
I came second in Big Brother, but I came out to Piers Morgan's headline front page of the Sunday Mirror. And when he heard I talked about this once before, he banned me from GMB. Which, it said, "Is this the most pathetic man in Britain?" So I came out to I was confused. I was thinking, I thought I did okay. And I was talking to the chickens, but that was comedy shtick, I thought. And there was someone in the psychiatrist. But anyway, lots of things going on in my life, like marriage and that stuff. So I came out, and I remember I was going round looking. I was looking to move house, buy a house. I needed a house. I'd lost one, so I was with my mate who was an estate agent, and my agent called and said, "Ricky Gervais wants you to call him." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "Come on, this is the biggest comedian in the world right now."
Yeah.
She said, "No, he does want you to call him." So I called and got voicemail, and then he called me back, and I remember thinking, "Is this a wind up? Is this John Culshaw?" But and he just said to me, "We're doing this thing, extras," and I'd read about it and thought that sounds great. And he said, "We've got a role for you if you fancy coming to talk to me and Steve, and we want you to play a twisted, demented version of yourself." So I went to see them, and
this was the first series, wasn't it, of extras?
Yeah,
you were in? Yeah,
it was the
series. Yeah.
So I mean, and when I went to see them in their office, and they were sitting, they both were sat with a sandwich, and they went, "Oh, we just got our sandwiches in, so we didn't have to get you one." Difficult.
Yeah.
But
Les, the first time I met Ricky,
I'd
made a little short film, and he was writing the Christmas special with The Office. I might have said it before on the pod, but I was so nervous.
Yeah.
I had to meet them in Oxford Street, go to the top floor, so I was in the lift, like, oh, God, bloody hell. I was just driving for a living. He said, "Come up and meet us." Okay, blah, blah, blah. I came up, the door's open. He said, "Hello, mate, take your shoes off." I went, "Okay." I took my shoes off in the lift. And he went, no, keep them on.
Keep one on.
Keep one on. Oh, dear.
But that extras, I remember it so clearly because it's such a standout. Your ep's such a standout ep, and it was just one of those things where, I just went, I think Les Dennis is brilliant. You know, you go, God.
I don't think anyone knew you acted.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't. I didn't know you did all.
No, I think I remember texting someone going, "Have you seen Les? I think Les Dennis is brilliant." Because it was so. How do
just
I put
so
it?
Natural and
and kind of like it was one of those things where you sort of go. It was quite a brave thing to go. I'm just out of nowhere going to play like a lunatic version of myself.
Yeah.
But it got such a good response because everyone sort of went, "Oh, he's really sort of up for like taking the piss out of yourself, and doing it so well and committing to that
and trusting Ricky and
trusting
Steve
Ricky,
yeah.
Like, as at that time you got Piers Morgan writing that, and the press calling me Les Miserables, and I thought, well, I've got a chance here to show that I've got a sense of humor about it. And when they said twisted, demented version, is there anything you don't want us to mention? I said, do what you like. And they sent me the script, and it arrived on Christmas Eve, and I remember sitting nervously thinking, right, and I read it, and I just thought, this is brilliant. And when I remember when I did call him, and it was after Christmas, and he went, oh God, he said, we thought you didn't like it. I was being polite. I thought, I better not call him over Christmas. He'll be off.
Everyone's insecure, aren't they? They were
thrilled that that I wanted to do it, and I really wanted to just say, this is me knowing about the perception and just blasting that hopefully out of the water.
Right, it did.
It completely did, didn't it?
It was just how brilliant you played it. It was just so believable.
Were you wearing anything in that changing room, Les? When you
did you have a little?
Please tell me you were.
I was wearing, as Ricky said, give Les a cricket box, but I don't have to see Les's offal. and
he's a charmer, isn't he?
Somebody in the props department must have done it as a joke. The biscuits on the side were ginger nuts. Right. Which we didn't use within it, but they were there. Yeah.
Did it feel good when you were playing the part? Did it feel like a funny show? And when we were rehearsing it, I remember, when I went to the office to read it with Ricky and Stephen, I remember them, and I always remember the quote of Billy Wilder saying this to Jack Lemmon. They kept saying, "Do less." So I did less, do less. And I remember that Jack Lemmon had said to Billy Wilder, if I do less, I'll be doing nothing. And he said, that's what I want. So I think, I got that idea that the less I did, the better it was, because it was so well written. The only thing I added was, and I remember, again, we were at the American church rehearsing it, and at the end, the last scene with the, as they called it, me in bed with the pissed up slapper. And I say, I don't really know, and she's like, get off. And then it was written again, I don't really know. And I went, do you think, because I've just done that, could I say, if it's up there, I'll give you the money myself? Yeah, we'll do it. We'll use it, but you're not getting the writing credit. I was pleased that I'd added that. Yeah. Did he let you guys? I mean, watching you guys with all the work you've done with him, yours seems very improvised. Did you write a lot of your own stuff, or did Ricky? Is every word written? No. There's definitely a scene there, but I mean, for me, there's a.
He's really open to it, isn't he? Yeah.
If I feel like in the moment when I'm acting, if I've got an idea and just go off for one, he doesn't mind, and he'll say more of that or less of that. And
I think he really likes people that he knows he can do that with.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Right. There's a scene there definitely, but I think if if there's a pissing about time, which I think is really important for Ricky stuff. Do you know what I mean? Because you just don't know what you're going to do under the pressure of the lights.
Work early, don't you? I mean, he doesn't be on 4 or 5 o'clock.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's the best job in the world. You go, right, we're done. Still light outside.
And I remember that when we filmed that scene, where I said, if it's up there, I'll give you the money myself. Stephen had to send him out.
Yeah. He's the worst. He's the worst.
He stood behind the camera and he laughed through the first 2 takes of it, and Stephen was like, "You can't do that, Ricky. You've got to go."
He hasn't learned his lesson though. He's but I think it's sort of quite nice knowing that the worst behaved person on the set is the director. So you go, "Oh, I'm looking incredibly professional." So sort of the weight's off a bit. You know what I mean? He's worse than me, and he's.
I found if I wasn't getting the laugh, I go, "Oh, Jesus Christ!"
But so you end up with nothing usable though. You know what I mean? Like if he's laughing over everything, because there was a take we did that I remember being like the best take, except for the fact he's piddling himself,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh shit.
Yeah. Les, Keith Chenquin was amazing actor, wasn't he?
He was so brilliant.
But how much acting had he done before?
Well, he was a child actor.
Oh,
Oh, of course. Yeah.
I think he was in Robin Hood, the TV Robin Hood. I think he was Will Scarlet, as a young Will Scarlet, and he'd done some films as a kid, So he had, that deadpan, there's a Colin Holt played the kind of inspirational therapist for me, and he was allowed. Colin could just go off and do kind of wild, and Ricky just was laughing his head off at Keith more than anything, because Keith has that, God bless him, that deadpan, and he was so excited because there was talk about a spin-off for the three of us, and then he left us.
Yeah, the three of you were so good together, so funny.
Did people's perception of you change after Extras? Did you feel a shift?
And it was a gradual shift, and kind of like, and I think as more and more people have seen it, I get a younger audience and people saying to me now, "Love your Extras," So it was a gradual shift, but definitely there was that thing where suddenly I was getting offered things that I wouldn't have been offered before because I was in that variety world. It's very, we tend to pigeonhole in this country, and certainly whenever I do a play, even still, if I do a musical, people are like, "Didn't know you sang." If I do a play, I'm a revelation. It's only, I've done God knows how many plays, but I'm still a revelation. What?
Yeah.
There's worse things to be called, I think.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Les, what was Eric Morecambe like?
I never met Eric.
Didn't you?
Didn't meet Eric. Because when me and Dustin were going, it wasn't long before Eric died, and I remember we were at a charity thing, and Ernie was there, and Eric said to us, he said, and Ernie said to us, he said, "Eric loves you too." So I was really gutted I never got to meet him, but
what a thing to know, though.
I know, and the other thing that I love, and Dustin was, I told you about the Acton Hilton. He was queuing his cup of tea, and a voice behind him said, "You're good, you're good. Just want to say you're good." And it was Ronnie Barker. That was saying,
"Oh, okay, that's me done."
And that
would be me.
Yeah, that kind of,
It's really weird talking to you, Les, because you just feel like that connection between this sort of.
Yeah.
Well, it's just the level of stuff you.
Yeah, the people you've worked with
and everything. I've got to. I was obsessed with the Russ Abbott show as a kid.
Were you? Oh wow!
And I said to David, I remember watching you guys and just going, I couldn't imagine anyone being funny. It was just so funny. And I swapped clips because my friend saw that you were coming on, and we spent the evening sending each other clips.
Yeah,
and it's still so fun, just funny as hell. Like all the stuff you did.
It is that you can't. Russ's shows are not on Dave or Gold or anything.
They're nowhere, are they?
You find them on YouTube, but people have sent clips and things. But there's nothing there. That's repeated. And Russ has kind of given up now. I think he got a little bit disillusioned. He doesn't work anymore. He plays golf, and I think he lives in Portugal most of the time.
Who wrote on those shows? Was it a big gang of writers or
Barry Cryer?
Yeah.
Wow.
Wonderful Barry Cryer, Minette and Levison, Paul Minette and Brian Levison, who wrote the Piglet Files for Nick Lyndhurst and did a lot of scripts for My Family. That they were kind of. They went on to do a lot of situation comedy writing.
Yeah.
Who else? David Vincent. Was it David Vincent? Peter Vincent, who was one of the two Ronnies writers. A lot of the two Ronnies. Neil Shand, who wrote for David Cross.
Of course, it was funny that you know what I mean. With that, with you guys performing it and that writing, it just doesn't exist anymore. Where you've got that amount of because there's so many people watching it, you can kind of feel like you can commit more money to the writers and the and everything.
Barry would be the script associate and editor, and he would kind of go through all the people would send in sketches, and new writers would be found as well.
I just remember the bit that me and my mum still say is about I don't know if you remember the court subpoena line.
Yeah.
The court, if you've got a court subpoena, and he goes, it's just the way my trousers hang. And we're still saying that 40 years on. Is it from the Russ Abbott show?
Russ would be thrilled. He'd be thrilled.
There's so many bits of it. I don't know, just because it was like just part of my life. It was.
Yeah, I love it. For instance, when Tom, when I started working with Tom on Fools and Horses, he said, "I've got to tell you that when I was 11, I came with my dad. His dad's an actor, Colin Bennett."
Oh yeah, I met Colin. Yeah.
Cool.
And he said, "I came and I was in your dressing room with my dad." When you were doing Me and My Girl at the Adelphi, and he said, and that was something that inspired me to want to do this. And you just think that's lovely when you can think that somebody's seen something,
The chap I've got to tell you is the chap I was swapping YouTube clips with. He told me, I saw him last night, and he said when Dustin died, his teacher helped him write a letter to you to tell to say how sorry he was.
Yeah, I got sacks full of letters. Absolutely, it was incredible. I think that it did hit a nerve that people were watching the show, and young kids were watching the show and were so confused about where's he gone.
Yeah.
The last series we did. The first episode went out on the 28th of December, and Dustin collapsed on the 1st and died on the 3rd of January. And then they postponed the rest of the series and didn't put it out until much later. But there was so much love for him, and literally, it's the one time that I've sat and answered every letter.
I mean, said it before, but that must have been such a. Just shocked your little world then, and then moving on from it. Bloody hell.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely that. The fact that it was on two levels. It was a work partner, but it was also my mate,
Yeah.
See, every part of your life was changing, basically.
Yeah. Before I met Dustin, he was a big name in the clubs, in the cabaret clubs, and in the way that Billy Connolly, what's his name, Mike, the guy with the big tash, Northern,
Mick Miller or someone.
No, not Mick, but it'll come to me in a minute. Those guys that could work the clubs without television exposure, they just had a and he could fill those clubs, and he was doing amazing impressions that were so visual. He used to do David Bowie he had a costume and in a strobe light he kind of swung round and it looked like Bowie was levitating. He was so inventive as a comedian and impressionist. And then when we worked together and somebody said you should be a double act, he went, yeah, definitely. And I went, but you're already established. He said, I just love doing this. And to the extent that we did Panto together, the first thing we did together, and it said, we were supporting Russ as Ugly Sisters. So Russ Abbott as Buttons, and then it said, Dustin G, and in little letters, and Les Dennis. And we had the same agent at that time. And my agent called me and he said, Dustin wants me to talk to you. And I thought, oh, have I upset him? And I went to see him, and the agent said, Dustin is a bit embarrassed. He's getting double your fee and he wants there to be parity of pay. This was before we decided to be a double act. He was
wow.
He
How
went.
often does that happen?
Exactly. He said he wants you to have the same money, and he also thinks it looks better Les Dennis and Dustin G than Dustin G and Les Dennis, and he wants the posters changed.
Really?
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Wow.
And he was he sort of 10, 15 years older than you?
He was 10 years older than me.
10.
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
Such a loss, because he was incredible.
Yeah.
He would have been coming up 80 now. In fact,
80?
Yeah. Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Les, for coming on. It's just
This is. I'm going to walk around the house now, just going.
I'm going to text my wife.
I had a great time. And listen, I was as nervous as you guys because I really.
Well, that's madness.
Well, no, it isn't, because you're the new.
We're really not. Les. We're really
Look at the grey on us.
Well, you are. And I think what you do is great. I thought Derek was a fantastic series as well. Afterlife is great, but I love Derek.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was great fun. So you're doing Only Fools and Horses, and then you're off to.
I'm off to Bolton Octagon Theatre to do a classic 60s play by Bill Norton, who wrote Alfie. It's called Spring and Port Wine, and it's a wonderful family saga.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how much? Sorry, last question. How much of the next year is planned for you, or are you just
nothing at the moment? People think, oh, you must work all the time, and I do, but it always is. It's feast or famine in our business, and I don't have a clue. And it always comes around that it gets towards Christmas, and I look at my wife and think, I don't know what we're going to do next year.
It's so weird hearing you say this, though.
There's something about the turning of the new year. I sort of come out to December. I think I'm sort of going, survive that year. You know what I mean? And then you get to January and you go, it's a whole year. It doesn't make any difference. It's December the 31st. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But suddenly the switch goes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, Paul Whitehouse said to me, he said, job share, Les. And I went, yes, please. So who knows, I might out and then go back in,
Thank you, Les. It's been an honour to meet you. It's been brilliant.
Congratulations on everything.
Go out when you put it out? When?
In the next week, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Terrific. I'll listen.
Yeah.
Oh my word! I'm going to. I've just met Les Dennis. I'm going to say that all day. My missus is going to go, shut up now.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to go. I didn't ask him about bugger. Yeah.
I will also go to David. He liked us, right? Yeah, he definitely liked us. He did. He's so needy for about 2 days. So.
Loved it. Thank you.
Thank you, Les. Have a great day.
Take care. Thanks again.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
You put the phone down.
No, you do it.
No, you do it.
We do this for an hour.